Have you ever listened to the pod and thought it would be awesome if Jen stopped being nerdy about movies for 60 seconds and talked about your business instead? Well, my friends, you're in luck. Watch with Jen is looking for sponsors. Do you own or run a theater, bookstore, film fest, website, school, physical media firm, pod, streaming channel, or small business that might like to advertise on Watch with Jen? Whether you're interested in sponsoring one episode or several, please reach out. You can get a hold of me at contact@filmintuition.com. Thanks so much. Hey, this is Jen Johans at filmintuition.com and Film Intuition on social media and Letterboxd. And this is Watch with Jen. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 8, which is our first physical media episode for 2024. Today we're looking at a few of the recent releases for spring that you can find if you're a fan of physical media from places such as Criterion, Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Arrow as well. Joining me, we have some guests who haven't been on in quite some time and others who you haven't heard on a physical media episode. So I thought it would be fun to bring some great people back today. And I will go ahead and give you the rundown in alphabetical order. In this special compilation, you will hear from such great guests as Alison Gaylin, USA Today and international best-selling author of The Collective and If I Die Tonight, among other books. Alison has won the Edgar and the Shamus Awards, and she's been nominated for several others, including the McKa, Anthony, ITW Thriller, and Strand Book Award. Then we also have the great Blake Howard, who is a longtime friend of the show and my midnight run-through co-host. Blake Howard is a film writer and a podcaster with his own terrific series of pods over at One Heat Minute Productions. If you don't already follow Blake, you're really missing out. Chris McKay is a tremendous cinephile and filmmaker and an all-around great guy. He directed the films Renfield, The Tomorrow War, and the Lego Batman movie. And my friend Rachel Wagner, who is so wonderful and such a great supporter of romantic comedies and things that really don't get covered a lot. She's completely passionate about Hallmark movies with her podcast, Hallmarky's Podcast, and also runs the pod and site Rachel's Reviews. So I hope you enjoy this compilation episode in which you'll also hear from me covering a few movies that I wasn't sure how many of my friends were really into taking a look at because of the amount of work involved or just how obscure they are. So hopefully we will entertain you and you might find some new movies to check out while you're listening. Just an announcement, we're going to be taking a little bit of a hiatus here in April to recharge for a moment and be back with some really stellar episodes that we have planned for May and beyond. Returning to the podcast and joining us, you will hear from more authors, including Susan Elliott McNeil, who I had the best conversation with a few seasons ago. We covered spy movies. She's back to talk about her last Maggie Hope spy novel. You will also get the return of Ace Atkins with his upcoming book, Don't Let the Devil Ride, which releases in June. Patrick Milliken from The Poison Pen, who is brilliant. If you haven't watched a lot of the Poison Pen events on YouTube, including the ones that he hosts, and he co-hosted with me as well. He is just a noir encyclopedia, and so he will be on in the coming months with a really great episode devoted to classic crime fiction. Right now, we're leaning towards Raymond Chandler. So get excited for that. But like I said, this will be the last new one for a little bit, and we will be back before you know it. So I hope you enjoy. I wanted to begin with a really cool box set that was released by the Criterion Collection back in February. It's Eric Rohmer's Tales of the Four Seasons. I had seen all of these films way back in the 90s when they were released. I remember tracking them down at the video store and getting excited. And the one that I loved the most remains my favorite to this day, A Tale of Autumn, and I'll get into that in a second. But they are just beautiful to look at. I've seen them over the years occasionally. It had been a really long time since I saw Tale of Winter and Summer. So those were the two that were probably I was the least familiar with when the box set arrived. Of course, it's exquisite. It is a 2K digital restoration that was supervised by cinematographer Diane Baratier and Laurent Scherer. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Director Eric Rohmer's son, and it has interviews conducted at his house in Toul, France. It has excerpts of radio interviews, documentaries, clips, short films that the filmmaker made, and of course, an essay, this time by the great Imogen Sarah Smith. So I received the Blu-ray box set, and it is just beyond gorgeous to look at because it is a series of films that are focused on the seasons. You have stunning flowers and trees and just, Parisian and French countryside scenery. And, it's a good way to armchair travel, especially because, travel is so prohibitively expensive and time consuming. And this is a really great way to do that. But let me talk a little bit about Rohmer. Of course, he was a French New Wave filmmaker, but before he was that, as a critic, one of my favorite things about that group is they were all critics. And Rohmer was one of the writers for Cahiers du Cinema, along with like Godard, Chabrol, Truffaut. They all did this. Rohmer published under his real name, which is not Eric Rohmer, but then changed to Eric Rohmer because he didn't want his family to know that he was involved in film, which would have been scandalous and they would have looked down upon it. And I always found that really interesting because I think, that never changes when you tell your family, oh, yeah, I love movies and I want to work in film. They're just looking at you like, well, I hope you like to starve or figure out a way to do this, or I'll see you in 10 years when you're working as a janitor, or they don't know, I mean, all parents are scared for their children, and it is an industry that is a gamble. You're basically just waiting for your ship to come in, that kind of thing. But this is someone who was very proactive. He wasn't even trying to be a filmmaker originally. He was, like I said, a writer. And he and Claude Chabrol wrote the first book-length study of Alfred Hitchcock in the mid-50s, and it helped establish the auteur theory, which nobody understands. It's kind of like method acting today, that people just throw around these terms that have nothing to do with what method acting actually is, or what auteur theory actually is. So go back to the text is what I'm saying. Don't just like listen to jackasses on Twitter or people being asked these questions in interviews and them saying stuff like, well, method acting, I don't want to play an ass, or I don't want to be an asshole all day. And it's like, that is not what method acting is. That is called a personality disorder. But I digress. Anyway, Rohmer was the last of the new wave filmmakers to kind of venture into the world of filmmaking. He did so with short films. But interestingly enough, he is the one that lasted the longest. He was making films well into the aughts that people were still excited to see. That is rare. Usually, as filmmakers age, people think they lose their relevance or they're not as interested in hearing what they have to say because they associate them so much with only one particular decade and, think old is bad and look down upon it. But not so for Rohmer. He received big acclaim and kind of broke in internationally with his Six Moral Tales, his very famous collection of movies that started in the 60s and went into the 70s. The most famous of these were My Night at Maud's and Claire's Knee, which are both wonderful films, and you should check them out on the Criterion collection. You can, or there is also a box set of those that I've always wanted to get, but maybe sometime when it's on sale because it's a little bit pricey. Then he followed up that series. He kind of likes to make series of films. He did some adaptations, some standalones, that kind of thing, a lot of television as well. And then after the Six Moral Tales, the next set of movies was comedies and proverbs. So that was a group of films. I've seen a few of those. I need to watch more. Then, his next big hurrah was The Tales of the Four Seasons. So the movies are as follows: A Tale of Springtime, A Tale of Winter, A Tale of Summer, and A Tale of Autumn. And I'm actually just reading them in the order of their release. So it doesn't go in the seasons as we in the United States know them, which would be spring, summer, autumn, winter. Autumn was actually last, and I think he saved the best for last, in my opinion. I would say the two I like them all, but the two that I probably wouldn't watch as much would be A Tale of Springtime, because while the characters are, he's highly verbal, they're always very conversational. If you love like Whit Stillman movies, Nora Ephron, Woody Allen, Noah Baumbach, all of those filmmakers, writer-directors, Nicole Holofcener, they all owe something to Rohmer. Hell, even Baumbach named his kid Rohmer. So, if you love those movies, check them out, all of them. A Tale of Springtime has some really priceless exchanges, especially early on, that are interesting. I love how in a Rohmer film, two people can meet at a party, become like best friends in 5 minutes and start bearing their souls, which, I am someone who trusts slowly and doesn't really disclose too much personal stuff. I think I'm from the Midwest. You sort of put your best foot forward, and even if you're having a worse day, you would say, "Oh, I'm great," and "Oh, I love them," and you're just trying to. You don't argue in public or that kind of thing, but not so in a Rohmer movie. It's like, "Hi, nice to meet you. I hate my life. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm in a good relationship. How are you?" That kind of thing. They just start talking. It's like being at a salon, essentially, where people just start telling you about their sex lives, and you're like, "Yeah, I don't know you, man." Um, anyway, so that's Tale of Springtime, Tale of Friendship. Summer is kind of this guy who's sort of jostling between a handful of women. Some seem great, some are not. It's just kind of a carefree, summer, sexy, okay, maybe I'll hook up with this girl, that girl, just sort of that time in your life of your 20s where you start like dating people and don't really know what you want or who you're looking for or who you are. So it's kind of a confusing time. I think it's well done. I would say summer and autumn are the two strongest. A Tale of Winter is very good. I like the idea. I don't love the characters. Yeah, they're kind of, a couple of them are a little on the obnoxious side, which, not that you need all of the characters in a film to be 100% someone you want to hang out with. Hello, I love Raging Bull. I don't want to meet that guy. But, it's a woman who had great sex with this dude she met on vacation, and then like they were going to meet up again and they traded addresses, and she wrote the wrong address down, and then she wound up pregnant by this guy who she totally loved. Like they had this whirlwind, very erotic relationship at the start of the movie. And then she's like just kind of floundering and picking the wrong dude and stuck between a couple. And that's kind of a recurring theme in Rohmer, who do I go home with, or who do I wind up marrying, that kind of thing. So I think Winter is good. Would I watch it as much as the others? Probably not. I think I'd watch Spring maybe the least, then Winter, but I do like them. Autumn is one I love, and it's funny. I'm not sure what it says about me that when I was like a teenager approaching my early 20s, I related to this story about like a middle-aged widow who had had enough of dating and like bad relationships, or she was like scared to get back out there. She's a wine grower, and she has a kid and loves the kid's girlfriend, thinks she's awesome, doesn't want him to blow it because she likes the girlfriend so much, like hang on to this one. And her best friend decides to find a guy for her. Her best friend is happily married and places an ad and like pretends to be her. So it's sort of a Parent Trap 2 kind of thing. And I know I just made a reference, so like, probably two people who saw Parent Trap 2 know what I'm talking about, but that is basically it, where Haley Mills and Haley Mills switch again as adults without one of them knowing, and starts trying to form a relationship for her sister. In this case, it is a friend for a friend, and the friend is like married happily, but going on these initial dates to like vet this guy. Is he good enough for my friend? It is a really great film. I enjoy Autumn Tale just a whole lot. And it's one that, it was hard to find over the years, but whenever it was on or I could track it down, Bravo used to play foreign films all the time. I know that's hard to believe because now it's like just the tackiest shit you've ever seen. But they would play this movie all the time back in the day, and I would record it and then watch it whenever. But it had been a while, and I found this again, I want to say like a year or two ago. I recommended it to my Patreon subscribers and just fell back in love with it again. So I was really excited to get this box set and own it. So that is Eric Rohmer's Tales of the Four Seasons. Highly recommend this box set. Well, next up, we have Alison Gaylin, who is a very talented writer and an ex-journalist and a fan of this movie. So thank you so much for being here, Alison. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about To Die For. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you remember seeing it in the theater?
I do remember seeing it in the theater, and it really made an impact on me. It was interesting because, obviously the Pamela Smart case was all sort of in the
Yes.
zeitgeist at that point. And seeing it in the theater, I mean, it was just both. Well, I mean, visually, it was pretty astounding and great. That first image of Nicole Kidman, that just close up, and her entire performance was just so wonderful and chilling, and such a great sort of tell about the just the whole period, that whole kind of media obsessed, talk show obsessed, TV obsessed time period. And so I just rewatched it like 2 nights ago.
Oh,
And
nice.
so Season of the Witch has been running through my head ever since because it's the last song in the movie. And it's really,
Perfect.
yeah, it's absolutely perfect. It's about, a modern day witch. It's about someone who is able to cast spells on people. And the only way her power can be released is by ending her, which is,
Yes.
spoiler alert, kind of what
Yeah,
happens.
spoilers. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
not cover this movie like we were saying off air without talking about what happens.
Yeah.
I know the music in this. I can't hear Dirty Laundry, Don
Oh,
Henley, without thinking of this movie too. I
first,
remember the trailer for it featured, I think, Dirty Laundry. Yeah.
yes. And also Sweet Home Alabama, that
Yes.
unforgettable scene of Nicole Kidman in front of Joaquin Phoenix's car, very theatrically dancing in the
Yeah.
rain.
Yeah,
Like the cool
it's
girl she is.
yes, I know. She's the temptress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like from Joseph Campbell, the wicked temptress. Yes. Bringing them
Yeah.
into the underworld for sure. I loved this movie. I remember seeing it in the theater and not knowing how funny it was going to be. Like it's a
Yeah.
dark comedy, but just, the audience was roaring at some of her jokes. Like she's looking directly at the camera and she's narrating the past events, and then you find out later like we're watching sort of like a Sunset Boulevard situation where she's not with us anymore. But some of her horrible things that she says about contemporary newscasters and events were just shocking to people. I heard gasps and laughter, and yeah, yeah, she's
Yeah,
amazing in this.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and it really captured that whole time period so well. I mean, it's I don't think people today know what power TV news had back then, and those and talk shows. Sally Jesse Raphael, she talks
Yes.
about, and like that's her dream to, be on
Yeah, Donahue, Springer.
Donahue.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
this was
Oprah, who was very different back
Oprah.
then. Yeah, and
Yes.
that
Yeah.
whole
Connie
sort of
Chung. Yep.
yeah, and the whole kind of spell-like power. And it was really the first time that somebody, who wasn't necessarily famous or a big screen movie star could become famous by being on one of these shows. And so by the end of the movie, she was headed in that direction, just in the sort of same way that Pamela Smart, who the case was based on, was kind of headed in that direction of that sort of ephemeral kind of fame that comes from not
Yeah.
necessarily from achieving something, but by doing something bad.
Yeah, infamy essentially. And
Yeah.
this was the same era of like the Menendez trial, the OJ trial. Like I remember watching all of these things happen, and
Yes.
it was crazy. Yeah. And I think, the entire cast is phenomenal. Of course, Nicole Kidman, this is still one of my favorite roles she ever had. I can't believe she wasn't nominated for an Oscar.
Oh,
But this is
same.
the first time we see Joaquin Phoenix, not as Lee for Leif, but Joaquin.
Yes.
Allison, is it Foland or Folland? She
She
is
was
terrific.
wonderful
Yeah.
as Lydia. Yeah, she was
Yes.
just great. A young
Yeah.
Casey Affleck,
Yeah.
Matt Dillon, who was amazing as
Yeah.
her.
Reteaming from Drugstore Cowboy with Gus Van Sant. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The cast was just incredible. Dan Hedaya. I mean, I just keep
Yeah.
thinking of people. Ileana Douglas, who was incredible.
So great. I love the ending of the movie, like we said, with Season of the Witch, and then this like very great visual of Ileana, who actually did learn some ice skating techniques in New York and did some of those spins. They cut out some of it. She was a little bummed because she did take a lot of lessons and put
Oh,
together
she's
a routine.
wonderful.
But she's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And David Cronenberg is a hitman, which is fabulous.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Exactly. Right. It was just, yeah, incredible. Great cast all around. I do remember, I think that was the first time I'd seen Joaquin Phoenix in anything. And I was pretty astounded at how, I mean, and I forgot how young he was back then,
Yes.
re-seeing the movie, but just how natural he was and how sort of heartbreaking he was in a way. And
Yeah.
Allison, what Allison Foley, Allison,
Yeah. Foland, I believe,
yeah,
or
yeah,
Folland. Yeah.
Colin,
Exactly. There's a double L, so I'm not quite sure. Allison, we apologize, but you were fabulous.
she
Yes.
was wonderful, and she got
Yeah.
her happy ending. It was interesting that the few people who weren't under um the spell of Nicole Kidman's character
Yeah,
got the
Suzanne.
ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, the very few.
Yeah, I think the editing is so brilliant because, like, when we see her at her honeymoon waving to her husband, and then it cuts to something else, and then we go back to why she was there. I think that was so good. You see
Yes,
the way, like, people tell stories to their family and only certain things or create fictions and all of these lies she has to kind of weave together.
yes,
It's daring too because a lot of actors don't like to play bad or they don't want to play somebody who isn't a hero essentially, and especially that goes doubly for women. This was an era of a lot of erotic thrillers where women were bad. They had more fun things to do on camera, but yeah, this was really brave, I think.
it was really brave. It was of even despite the basic instincts and everything else,
Yeah.
for her to take a part like that, that is so unlikable, that was a big risk for women back then. Unlikable characters were just, you know, just could potentially torpedo someone's career, but it
Yeah.
really made her showed how versatile she is and how incredible she can be and how funny she can be. I mean, really.
Yes. So funny. And I read that Meg Ryan was going to take the role originally. They were offering her like 5 million, but she backed out. They got Nicole for 2 million. But it's interesting later on, Meg Ryan did play Dark. She was in The Cut, which I think is brilliant, but that kind of ended her career for a while. Like she did take on a role that's very different than you think of when you think of Meg Ryan. So this was an interesting era. And, I think Nicole got into more prestige pictures in the 2000s, of course. But I think this is, what kind of put her in the mind of all of these filmmakers. She's not just Mrs. Tom Cruise, which is kind of a line from the book, I guess. There's a line like, who should play her? And she's like, Julia Roberts, or that actress who just married Tom Cruise. I forget her name. And she
Oh,
wound up
from the
playing
book.
her.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I haven't read that, but I was reading the essay in the new Criterion edition, and they mentioned that. And I thought, oh my God, that's perfect. Yeah.
That is absolutely perfect. That's a life imitating art, imitating life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and the it's interesting because it's almost a Meg Ryan impersonation that Nicole Kidman is doing in the movie. I mean, that's
Yes.
obviously not her Australian voice. It's not her voice.
Hmm.
It's a different, that kind of childlike voice that she's got is very early Meg Ryan kind of. So that it's interesting. I
Yeah.
think it's also a really good companion movie to watch with May December, two different directors,
Yes.
but
That's a good call. I
very,
like that.
very complicated women parts, both based on real life cases, both
Yeah. Women using their
incredibly strong.
sexuality for, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of made me. I loved May December. Now I want to rewatch that again with To Die For, back to back.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that is a good call. And I think also, Gus Van Sant had just made Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, which bombed. But this kind of put him back in that drugstore cowboy, my own private Idaho thing. And then next, I think it was the next movie he made was Good Will Hunting, or just shortly thereafter. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think this was an important one because I love the way it's put together. The editing is so good, like I was mentioning, but also just the point of view. Like there's a great scene early on in the restaurant that Matt Dillon's family owns, where we see these men at a table kind of watching Matt Dillon be gaga over Suzanne doing the weather on TV and so excited. And then later we find out they're the police that are going to investigate. And one is played by Michael Rispoli. I can't remember the other actor, but I just love that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of playing with point of view in the
Yeah.
movie, which adds to both kind of the humor, but also the suspense of it. Just to see, that whole um, shifting in point of view. You mentioned earlier that entire scene when we see Matt Dillon going fishing with his friends, and
Yes.
we don't know where she is, and then we find out where she was and what she did and
Yes.
when she comes home. And that was really interesting. It was also, I feel like, the one scene in the movie where she was not quite in control of the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. She goes to a journalism conference and she's looking for ideas on how to, reach the next plateau. And she meets a creepy guy who tells her this horrible story and whispers in her ear who it was allegedly about. And yeah, you do see her be nervous and not sure if she should use her sex quite that hardcore. Like you could kind of see her starting to realize, what am I going to have to do to get this goal that she has to be, the most famous newscaster ever. Yeah.
Yeah, and and we don't really know for sure whether she does or doesn't.
No.
We never see the actual scene. It's just left to our imagination. But yeah,
Yeah. And also the family. I like that we see the perspective of not only the sister played by Leanna Douglas, but the parents on both
Mhm.
sides, and how Suzanne's parents are even puzzled by her actions or the stories she tells, or even you can kind of see her using like Maria Shriver's wedding veil.
Yes,
And she whispers in her dad's ear something that you would put in a cheesy romantic comedy, like, I'll never find another man like you, or something like that.
yes,
And
and her
he goes,
dad looks
huh?
just yeah. He looks completely nonplussed by it. So
Yes,
which I love. I love about that
yes.
character. It's not like, oh, this was instilled in her by her, overly possessive father. That's not true at all. It's
No.
like she just sprung out of nowhere and she
Yeah, like to use a
inflicted
line,
herself on everybody.
yeah, a line from another Todd Haynes movie, Carol, like flung out of space. Like, where did
Yeah,
this girl come from? Yeah,
yes, exactly, exactly.
yeah, yeah. It is such a good movie. Is there anything else you wanted to add about this one?
No, I would just say it's just such a treat to watch. It's so entertaining on
It
sort of
is.
every level, and it holds up today. So I
It
would
does.
definitely recommend it.
Yeah, and if you've never seen it before, you might have to watch it a second time to appreciate all of the, what everyone is doing, these perspectives and the way things play off of one another. I think it's just such a blast. So, Allison, I want to thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Jen. This has been a pleasure.
Well, next up, we have filmmaker Chris McKay, who's joining me once again. I had him on last year for Bud Whitaker's Westerns. It was a lot of fun, and I got him back to talk about more Westerns. So,
Or
Chris, how are you
Westerns.
doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, yeah. So, The Shootist, I had seen this movie years ago, and they just put out a new edition of it from Arrow Films.
Yeah,
Put
yeah.
out, yes, the new Shootist Blu-ray. It looks great, but it had been years. This is the final film for John Wayne. He's reuniting with Jimmy Stewart and a bunch of his friends from years past, and it's directed by Don Siegel. So, are you a fan of this film? Tell me your memories of it.
Actually, I had never seen it before
Oh, really?
until
Okay.
you mentioned talking about it. So I was really eager to watch it, and I'm a huge Don Siegel fan. Like Don Siegel's one of those guys. He started as an editor. He edited the opening montage to Casablanca. Is one of the first big things that he did, where it's cutting to all the people, with the voiceover and everything. The opening Casablanca. And I, and like Invasion of Body Snatchers, like the Clint Eastwood movies.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of his films, and this movie is slow. Like
Hmm.
it's probably the common complaint that people have with westerns, that they're very slow. In many ways, it's a lot like Unforgiven. A little bit
It
because
is.
there
Yeah.
is this sense of this guy, is kind of in the way that Clint Eastwood was sort of interrogating his relationship to westerns and things like that. And Unforgiven, this was John Wayne's version of that, and I loved starting. Speaking of montages, starting with the montage of Rio Bravo and
That was great.
Stagecoach. Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
really great way of getting into it. And I know we're going to talk about Liberty Valance in a second, but it's interesting how Liberty Valance is such a small movie, very low budget in many ways, and not very John Ford in the way it's the scope of it anyway, and how much the
Yeah.
shootist is very
Wide
big.
open spaces. Yep.
Yeah, and it's kind of like this movie that's at a crossroads between kind of more modern filmmaking that I think is more of what Don Siegel's kind of wheelhouse is, and and the old school filmmaking. The there's occasional shots that are shot handheld or dollying, through the
Hmm.
house and things like that are really suddenly it's like it kind of breaks out of the kind of shot reverse shot kind of thing that they're doing, and
Yeah.
you get this sense of dynamism, you get this sense of scope in the in her house, in the bar, in Jimmy Stewart's office, and things like that. So I was really the way they detail Carson City, the way the camera, he's always finding interesting place to put the camera. It's under a stagecoach when John Wayne is coming through in the town, and the wagon wheels are going over the camera and stuff like that. There were some really neat things that he did, and I think that the ending, like I said, it's kind of slow,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that the ending really makes up for kind of how slow it is, and it does kind of earn the pace, I think, for me, but from my experience anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hadn't seen it in years. And so when I watched it again, at first this was the film we were just going to talk about. And then I watched and I'm like, I don't know that there's a lot here to talk about without bringing in another film. But yeah, I think it is. I love that you brought up Unforgiven because very much, he's sort of looking back. He's bringing in, there's like Richard Boone and there's all these other people. That are brought in. I also love Ron Howard. It's kind of a staple of the John Wayne that he's passing the torch on to a young gunslinger or a young guy. But in this case, it isn't like Ricky Nelson or one of those kids who is going to want to be a gunfighter. Like by the end, there's some real stakes and some sadness kind of built in. But then watching it back to back with Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, we have a scene where teaches somebody how to shoot or kind of just shows them, the ropes that way. Lauren Bacall is really good. I think. Yeah. And this, I think, would have been kind of a deeply personal film for her to make. I mean, John Wayne had survived cancer himself, but having lost Bogart and then
I guess John Wayne and her had been friends for a long time because they made a movie.
Yeah. And that whole heartbreaking scene with like his ex-love coming in and you think, one thing, but then you realize she's like kind of a money grubber and just wants to marry him to write this like book along with a journalist. There's some it's a deeply affecting, it's a kind of a dark side of John Wayne.
Even the first scene with John Wayne when he shoots that guy in the stomach, it's almost more brutal than had he killed that guy when he just shoots him in the stomach and kind of leaves him there and sort of joking about it. It was like a much darker John Wayne. But there's a sadness over the whole movie, and some of those scenes that you're talking about with his ex-girlfriend and kind of that last scene with Lauren Bacall where when he basically says he's going to die and we know he's going to die. It's really well written and well staged, and it was really those were really powerful. And it's funny when you talk about Ron Howard because Ron Howard's face is so modern in some ways.
Yes, he's a little animated. Yeah.
And he's also like, since the movie starts off with Ron Howard doing voiceover, and for 2 seconds I started thinking of Arrested Development. Yes. Because I was like, he's been doing voiceover for a really long time.
Yeah.
This is the first time I ever noticed, like, because there's a lot of blood. I mean, not a lot, but you know what I mean? Like when there is blood, there's volumes of blood.
And it's like thick paint-like blood. Yeah.
Which reminded me of the blood that he used in Dirty Harry. And then the next thing I thought of was how this blood is the same thickness and color of like George Romero and Tom Savini's blood in Dawn of the Dead. It's like it's very garish and Technicolor. Whoever supplied that blood must have supplied it for Dawn of the Dead for George Romero and Tom Savini. But it was really I was really surprised the amount of blood when people do get shot. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, like that whole final sequence for sure. Yeah, and you mentioned being a Don Siegel fan. He kind of worked in all genres. He's talked about his background as an editor, some underrated stuff that he did. I always liked Flaming Star. It's not one that people talk about very much. Do you have any favorites or ones you want to recommend that people should?
I mean, look, if you haven't seen the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I'm a big
excellent.
It's so good. I'm a big 1978, Phil Kaufman, Invasion of the Body Snatchers fan. But I think the Kevin McCarthy Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Don Siegel, it's so good, and it is a movie that's very even for its time. I think it's a very modern movie. I think movies that people haven't seen are Charlie Varick.
Such
with
a good one. Oh my
Walter
God, I love
Matthau.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, and then Coogan's Bluff, I think, is a movie that not a lot of people. It's a Clint Eastwood one that not a lot of people have seen. But
yeah,
yeah, if you haven't seen Invasion of Body Snatchers, if you haven't seen Dirty Harry, the first Dirty Harry, no matter what you think of politics of that
sure.
movie, it's really I think the movie's really effective and is just the camera language. I mean, that he used in that movie. That's kind of also what I was really surprised at in the Shootist, where he was a lot more controlled in his
A
camera
little more
because
static. Yeah.
yeah, because in
Hmm.
Dirty Harry, like the camera's like,
Frenetic.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
all over the place, and it's just like
Hmm.
it's moving around. And there's that one shot where Dirty Harry's like standing on Scorpio's leg, and the camera just like
Yeah.
goes flying out of the stadium, goes all the way out of this. It's like really very expressive and wild, camera, visual style, visual palette, and that's the so if you haven't seen that, I would try to definitely, if that's something you've missed, you should watch Dirty Harry, Invasion of Body Snatchers, Charlie Varick, Coogan's
Yeah.
Bluff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Pursue, go through all of his films basically.
Yeah.
But
Escape
moving
from
on.
Alcatraz also is a really good one if you haven't
Yes.
seen that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you brought that one up. That's a really good one. But Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is a favorite Western of mine and one of my favorite movies. John Ford, you talked about, yeah, this isn't the wide open spaces. This isn't the searchers.
Yeah.
It's more claustrophobic. It's smaller in scale. It's black and white for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
I love it. It's very subversive in what they're doing with names and
Yeah.
symbolism. And also, what was really cool, that movie, Power of the Dog, that Jane Campion did.
Mm-hmm.
She takes stuff right from Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, like the song that they sing in the
Yeah.
beginning, that's in there. And then the way it plays out with the waiter and being humiliated. And same thing goes down here with James Stewart,
Yeah.
the lawyer. Lee Marvin was kind of someone Benedict Cumberbatch kind of modeled his
Mm.
character on. And so, yeah, if you love this movie and you haven't seen that one, this would make a good double feature. But I love Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah. The song was written by Hal David and Burt Bacharach, right? Am I mistaken?
Oh, the title song?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about what is it? Hot Time in the Old Town Tonight was
Yeah.
in both films. But
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think that was one
Yeah.
of theirs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because it's 1962, and I'm going to guess that westerns, I think, starting to not be as successful, and people, I think, we're going to we're stopping making westerns, and I kind of think that's why the budget is so. This movie is a very low budget affair. The
Hmm.
town feels, even the opening shot of the train, it's so small, and and
Yeah.
and that last shot too feels like just like a pickup, because the last shot of the movie is the train going away. It starts the train coming towards camera, ends with the train going away from camera, and that last shot of the train going away is actually kind of handheld or something,
Hmm.
and it feels like they just grabbed it really fast, catch as catch can kind of thing. Um, but and it's also when I think about like Vera Miles in this movie, and she 2 years prior to this she did Psycho, which is really funny to think about, that like 2 years ago, 2 years before this movie, she was in Psycho, and this thing that's like very
Yeah.
planting the flag of like kind of like filmmaking to come, and Alfred Hitchcock stretching himself, and now she's in this movie with John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart, and it just feels like it's like Hollywood in a kind of in this crisis, back and forth between the kind of filming.
Yeah.
Same. Everyone's thinking about the Shootist too. The fact that movie came out in 1976, and it's Rocky and All the President's Men and all these other movies were out at the same time as as
Hmm.
as as that was. It's really interesting to see, just kind of where these movies sit in time, and how sometimes even a movie that feels old like this, because it doesn't feel like it's made in 1962,
No.
but it is a timeless movie, and the print the legend thing is something that no matter if you've seen this movie or not, you've probably heard that phrase, or you've
Yeah.
heard people talk about that idea. I read something. There was something I wrote down, something that I read this when somebody had said something about the print the legend, um, that I thought was really really interesting quote. Truth is only as meaningful as long as it agrees with what the public wants to hear. I thought that was such an
Yeah.
interesting way of looking at that, because that was what they were saying, that they were responding to that print the legend quote and saying, yeah, the truth is only as meaningful as long as it agrees with what the public wants to hear. I thought that was very modern way of looking at things. But this movie is so it's so moving, and yet and I really um I really feel for the Jimmy Stewart character. I love John Wayne in this movie. He's almost like kind of playing like almost like a second fiddle, even though he's like sort of this kind of mythic
Yeah.
character. He's very sad. He's losing Vera Miles to this.
I
You know,
know. Oh my God, the most brutal sequence when he sets his place on fire and oh my God.
yeah, him and Woody
Yeah.
Strode. I mean, I love the relationship between him and Woody Strode in
Yeah.
this movie. Um, and Lee Marvin's great, and John Ford, the way he uses people, the way he blocks masses of people, like in all of the scenes at the when they're doing the statehood convention
Yeah.
in
Everyone
there.
is in a specific place and just looking at it, it's almost like a painting or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so and then the bar too, when it's like, okay, everyone can get a beer or whatever, and they all come running in, and they're kind of like there's people on top of other people, and they're just the way, like you said,
Yeah.
it's very painterly, but it's also incredibly like, even though it's a
Pretty.
static frame, there's a lot of movement in it, a lot of these great faces and things like that. So it's some wonderful staging and blocking that he does, and even though it is not the Searchers from the scope and scale of the movie, he still finds ways of shooting this town, finding shots of people against the landscape, against the sky. There's one of the opening shots is the I can't remember the character's name, but he's waiting for Vera Miles and Jimmy Stewart to show up. He's for the former sheriff, and it's just him and the building and the sky behind him, and it's so even when he's got meager resources, John Ford always finds ways of creating this really wonderful again, scope, scale, plays with these side characters, it gives them real agency and life in them, and it's why it's always a master class, like watching his movies. Just yeah, it's just and in this, and again, the emotionality in this movie. He's one of those guys that doesn't, famously doesn't talk about his filmmaking, or kind of
Yeah.
dismisses it in a way. But it's hard to believe. I always feel like that's such a front, that's an attitude that he puts out, because his movies are so. He's not a cold filmmaker. He's a very emotional filmmaker, deeply emotional filmmaker in many ways. So like, yeah, I mean, I think this movie is so fun and so moving, and just yeah, it's an acting style that I think a lot of people sometimes resist a little bit, but if you can kind of get beyond that, I think it's just such a wonderful movie.
It really is. Yeah, when Ford talks about it, he says like black and white is quote real photography, because you have to know how to set in your shadows and
Yeah.
how to like lay everything and put people in a certain place. When I watched it this time, first of all, I think Lee Marvin gives maybe the scariest or the most twisted villain
He's
performance.
really
Like,
evil.
I mean, guy uses a whip.
Yeah.
It's kind of kinky. It's weird.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's a whip with all sorts of little things on it too. It's like
yes,
really, yeah.
it's strange. Yeah. And I just, the way he says dude a certain way. And I was noticing the sound design when I was watching it this time, like the famous sequence where he shoots Liberty Valance, like you can tell just by the sound. And it's supposed to be loud because it's shocking, because a gun is going off in Jimmy Stewart's hand, but you can tell that's a shotgun. Like just watching it in 4K and
Yeah.
listening in really good sound system, it was like, whoa, okay. So they tip the hand a little bit, and also just the way certain lines kind of feel like they're a few decibels higher. I was noticing that, or the way the wind hits, or that fire sequence really
Yeah.
kind of envelops you. And I hadn't really noticed the sound before. So that was
They did on that 4K, because I have the 4K too, and then I was listening to it, and I noticed that same thing too, that it was really a full sound, and you
yeah.
really the simplicity. By the way, also the simplicity of that flashback. That's
Yes.
something I really admire too. Just how much I just say he's just like, he says to Jimmy Stewart he's going to tell him the full story, and then he just cuts to that different angle, and where you can see
Yep.
exactly what's happening. He pulls back, and you see, John Wayne and Woody Strode there, and it's all done in one master, and then you're out. It's really just, yeah, it's really well done. Really well.
Yeah, he doesn't linger or, make it it was just an unromantic, this is what happened.
Yeah,
What he
yeah.
did. Yeah, I love that. The thing I noticed this time, I don't know how many times I've seen this movie and hadn't before, was when Lee Marvin is playing poker right before he dies. The last card he gets is an ace, and he goes, aces and eights. And all of a sudden it clicked, oh, dead man's hand. Like, I don't know why that hadn't clicked before, but yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's
That's not,
such a good movie for sure. And before we started recording, I realized just this morning, oh my gosh, they were also in another film together, How the West Was Won,
yeah.
which I haven't seen in years. I don't know if you have off the top of your head, do you remember their dynamic at all?
No, no,
No.
and I think that's one too. That isn't that one was that a Cinerama one? That was one of the
Yeah,
ones
it
that
was one of those. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That's one I've always wanted. I think when they've played it, when the Cinerama Dome used to be open, they've played it, and I've always managed to miss it. So that's one I really want to. Hopefully, when they open up Cinerama again, they'll
I
do that.
know. Yeah,
Yeah,
one of those goals like Grand Prix. When that plays
yes,
again, I'm gonna have to go back to LA for that. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you so much for doing this. It was such a pleasure to talk Westerns.
Thank you. It's great seeing you.
Longtime listeners are well aware that I love the Westerns of Anthony Mann. Mann's work, especially the films The Naked Spur and Man of the West, became some of my favorite discoveries deep in the pandemic. And I was really excited when I heard that Arrow was releasing one that I had never seen before, and they were kind enough to send it my way on Blu-ray. It's The Tin Star, which is a 1957 movie starring Henry Fonda and Anthony Perkins. It's one of Perkins' first roles. And it was based on a short story. So many great Westerns, especially in this period, were based on short stories. Of course, 3:10 to Yuma, Elmore Leonard is one of the quintessential examples of this. And The Tin Star became one of the first and few low budget Westerns to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Writing, Story, or Screenplay at the time. It's a film where Henry Fonda plays a bounty hunter who arrives in a small town with the body of an outlaw, very Clint Eastwood stuff. And the townsfolk are angry that he's showing up with this body. Ben Owens, who is Perkins, the young sheriff, is a little bit angry too because he didn't want the man to be brought in dead. He wanted it alive because that's not justice in his eyes. He admires him for getting the job done. Of course, while he's there, Henry Fonda, so being an outsider, this bounty hunter who's not exactly welcome, he goes and he stays with a woman who is also kind of ostracized in the community because she has a son who is half Native American, and the white townsfolk is not cool with that. Anthony Perkins is also a little bit of an outsider because he is the lawman and he's a little in a rock and a hard place. He's in love with a woman named Millie, whose dad was the previous sheriff killed in the line of duty. So she is refusing to marry Perkins unless he quits his dangerous job. He loves Millie, but he also feels a great responsibility and love for his work. So he is up a creek essentially. And, there's a crime is committed. We have more posses. We have a big bad in town who is the town bully that they're going to have to kind of take on together. The film's cast is excellent. You have like Neville Brand is the town bully, whose name is fabulous for it. It is Bart Bogardus. What a perfect name for a bully. Betsy Palmer, John McIntyre, Mary Webster, and Lee Van Cleef, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone who knows, Westerns knows Lee Van Cleef. So he is in this movie, small role, but he's there. So, you don't want to miss that either. Anthony Mann actually considered the film to be only fair because he felt that there was too much supervision. And he said, and his quote was, "I really believe that in order to create a good film, one has to do it completely on one's own. The picture may not be a success even then, but it stands a greater chance if you leave the artistic endeavor to the director." I agree that I think it isn't one of his best films, but it's above average. So I would say it's better than fair. I think Anthony Perkins is excellent. He definitely has a role that allows him to play multiple sides of the same individual. We see him struggling with things, and usually the quote unquote sidekick or whatever of the new man who rolls into town Shane style doesn't pack the same punch as the lead, of course, by design. And there's nobody tougher than Henry Fonda in this movie, of course. You know that he is going to get things done. But Perkins is interesting and he holds his own. And you see, I mean, he's gorgeous to look at. The camera loves him. And you see him kind of playing with the emotionality of his character in an interesting way. Fonda, I think, is one of the best male actors of his generation. I mean, he was around for decades, but I think the 50s were, a particularly interesting time because going back to the 30s, he played like the good guy. And then, of course, Grapes of Wrath, he really started to show his range and test that out. And the 50s were interesting. And I like that sometimes when these actors that we knew from decades past entered the 50s and started entering their middle age, they get these roles that have a little bit more going on. Is it a perfect movie? Like I said, no, not at all. But it's in VistaVision. It is in black and white. But I have to tell you guys that the new transfer on the Aerodisc is stunning to look at. So I encourage you to check it out. I would say rent it if you haven't seen the film. If you're a fan and you're collecting movies and you're a big Western enthusiast, this is a good addition as well. So that is the Tin Star. Well, next up, we have my friend Blake Howard here to talk about Contagion, which was just released on 4K Warner Brothers. Blake, I'm a huge fan of Steven Soderbergh, and I did my thesis on Sex, Lies, and Videotape. I've seen, I think, pretty much all of his movies, maybe missing a couple, but because Contagion dealt with like medical stuff primarily, not like in a side effects fun way, I avoided that one like the plague. And then Warner Brothers sent it to me this year, and I finally watched it. I know you're hugely influenced by this one, and I loved it. It was phenomenal, but I think I'm glad I saw it on this side of the pandemic. Had I watched it during, I would have been in a basket case. So talk to me about Contagion.
Yeah, it's a 2011 thriller that, I mean, firstly, contextually, it was a time where Soderbergh is just kind of doing whatever he wants as he does today, but making
Yeah.
things still in the last gasp of Hollywood scale. And I remember particularly in the Australian film community, like going to see this movie, there were kind of Soderbergh heads, you and me, Jen, like that, people
Yeah.
like us, people I think that who if anyone has listened to any of my podcasts that I produce, like there's a whole suite of Australian critics and stuff like that you would have heard on my shows. They're kind of that's more of the Soderbergh heads, and there was a whole other camp of people that are like, Soderbergh, so, and you're like, and he just makes like great movies consistently
Yeah.
with the biggest actors in the world. Like, what more do you want? Like, I don't know what to tell you. He got nominated for Best Director, like with 2 films in the same year. How dare you? Anyway, so Contagion comes out, written by Scott Burns, who I adore. Also the writer and the director of The Report, with Adam Driver from a few years ago, which is really terrific. Scott Z. Burns wrote a bunch of the stuff. He wrote Side Effects, like you were talking about. But this film is just like, it is literally a nightmare scenario
Yeah.
that came true. Like, it's the exact playbook. I saw this in 2011 and I was terrified. I was like, oh, wait, can it
Yeah.
actually happen? And when the pandemic happened, for anyone who had seen Contagion, it's like, oh shit, we're in Contagion. Like, which part of Contagion are we in? Are we in this is just like not really real? Oh, this
Yeah.
is real. Oh, every state's being locked down. Oh, there's people that are fighting over toilet paper and rioting in the streets. This is the part where people say that there are fake cures.
Yeah.
This is the part where medical professionals tell a person in their private life to leave a town because it's about to get shut down and it gets leaked, and then they become the villains of the thing, not the actual virus anymore. Pharmaceutical companies are going to get rich. All those lovely things and themes that beat for beat Scott Burns and Soderbergh develop with this fucking phenomenal cast. I think it's actually perfect. It is so perfect and reinforced that it's perfect because of the pandemic that it like literally goes through the playbook. And it's almost like at the time you wanted people dealing with the pandemic to be like, okay, homework tonight. I know you're not going anywhere. Go home and watch the Contagion and decide which part of Contagion we're in. And do all the right things they do in the movie, and also try and avoid the mistakes that they like very candidly show. So no, I remember seeing it. I remember instantly loving it. And at the time, I had like I had what I think genuinely was a great idea, and it wasn't the only idea that happened. It was almost like osmosis on two sides of the globe. One side was Sam Fragoso is now the host of like Talking Easy, and a couple of other folks, and even people that we know and love, like people like Sean Burns and stuff like that, became part of a collective called Movie Mezzanine, which was like taking all of a bunch of film critics and working together independently as a publication. And we did the same thing. It was maybe a hot minute before it happened in the States, but I called the site Graffiti with Punctuation. So there was a couple of bloggers in Australia, a guy by the name of Cam Williams and Richard Gray. They'd had some great sites, Popcorn Junkies, Real Bits. We had a site called Castle Co-op I was tinkering with, and I was writing about culture and stuff like that. And then I brought it together. And then the team that I assembled on that site, Maria Lewis, there was a bunch of people, Eddie Buckle and my dearly departed friend, Dave. Like there was a bunch of people that we just had the same idea: get the best critics. They're all working independently on little blogs, bring them together. And I called it Graffiti with Punctuation. And because of Elliot Gould's great line as Dr. Sussman, to Jude Law, blogging's not writing, it's graffiti with punctuation. I think it's great. So yeah, I had a real affinity for this movie, and it felt like it was just that harmony of the community at the time, that there were people who were watching this movie and going, Soderbergh is kind of on the cutting edge. He's one of our guys. He's one of those people that you're always consistently fascinated to watch, love to write about. And then there was sort of an old guard who was like, you fucking internet writing douchebags, you all suck. And it just, I don't know, it captured something. He's kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say he's antagonistic, Soderbergh himself, but like I feel like he's antagonistic to the system because he's so himself. He's so unique. And I think that that's captured in everything in this movie, as well as it has the best cast of like any movie ever, as well as everyone is at the complete top of their game, as well as has Gwyneth Paltrow's best performance, in my opinion, especially because she dies right at the beginning of the movie. Horrendously, in fact, actually scarily etched into your brain. And oh my God, just the incredible, Lawrence Fishburne, as classy and cool and awesome as possible.
Mhm.
No movie is ever not good that or not worthwhile at least looking at that has John Hawkes in it. Marianne Cotillard, great. Lots of tendrils of the story. Some things get more fleshed out than others. It's just more of like a tapestry piece, but I love it. And you said that we were going to chat about this, so I went back and revisited it. I saw it at the time it was released in the cinema. I saw it many times after that because of the name I stole liberally from it to create a, a movie writing collective. And I watched it during the pandemic too.
Mhm.
And what was so funny is that you're like, oh, I wonder if I wonder if it's ever going to get this crazy. And then you're like, oh, maybe Contagion was being modest about
Yeah.
the craziness. Because Jude Law's slimy, gross douchebag, Alan Crumb, he's got a great name, Crumwady or whatever it is. Like, I don't know how to Crumwady or whatever. Um, there were like 10 of them. There were like
Mhm.
10 of those guys in the pandemic all across the world. And it was all these little mini manifestations, all these mini microcosms of communities. They were doing a macro, but I feel like in the micro, there are all these like pandemic archetypes that you can just pluck out and go,
Yeah.
yeah, like in my city, it was like that, or in my state, it was like that, or it was this, or it's that. And so, yeah, I continue to love it. I think it's perfect. I think it's effortless. Cliff Martinez's score is plugged into the like increasing heart rate rhythms of all the things you see. And yeah, I think it's really special. And it looks, all of Soderbergh's movies look fantastic because he knows how to shoot the hell out of a movie. But yeah, this particular one, the color grading on 4K just looks so crazy good because it's all that we like. He and Finch are both like that yellow kind of plot colored tinge to things, but the death green that feel like I really felt watching in the 4K. I was like, oh, that like I mean, it all goes all the way back to Vertigo, but like that death green was just around. And yeah, it was very very creepy and very cool. And I'm so glad that you didn't watch it during the pandemic. It would have absolutely, knowing some of your health history, it would have absolutely not been the movie for you to watch.
No, yeah, and you brought up, I mean, first we'll touch on the cinematography exactly. I think he's been doing that even as far back as like Out of Sight, where he
Yeah,
uses color just before you even see one of the actors, oh, okay, we're in the Asian plot line or we're by the CDC just based on the way he's shooting it, or we're back in Minnesota because of how it's different looking from the others. So he's kind of using that, which sort of goes back to some of the 70s filmmakers, like the foreign guys, Antonioni in the 70s, or Bartolucci a little bit, also Godard. But in the 90s, I think Wong Kar-wai was,
yeah,
working with Christopher Doyle. So you kind of saw him sort of adapt that. I think he really hit a home run with it the most in Traffic, and then that kind
yeah,
of carried on what he loves to do. The other thing I love about Soderbergh is so many people watch his stuff and just go, oh, he just does whatever the hell he wants, and there's no overarching theme or whatever. But if you look at from the beginning in Sex, Lies, and Videotape, this is a man with extremely healthy mistrust of institutions, the medical establishment, law. I mean, he kind of is like down with therapists and down with lawyers, and there's speeches to that effect right in Sex, Lies, and
oh,
Videotape.
Aaron,
And
all the
then
way to Aaron Brockovich, the best,
Aaron Brockovich, masterpiece. And
and
then,
fucking ugly shoes.
yes. And then it carries on and just, even some stuff in like Logan Lucky with the Adam
Yeah,
Driver character and medical, so he's kind of had these sort of issues, and this is kind of him tapping right into this. This was right after The Informant, which is a
mm,
film I
great film,
loved.
great
Yeah,
film.
that was actually, I remember writing about it. And I don't know how Kevin Pollak, the actor, like found my piece. He's not
Jen,
even in.
Jen, I never know how people find your, but like, I'm not
Yeah.
surprised. It's always great, but it's like
Oh,
you have the best stories of random people finding stuff, like,
yeah.
especially a year after you published it, it's somewhere
Yeah,
else.
it's like for that, it was right away. It was Kevin Pollak, who isn't even in that movie. And he just started sharing it on Twitter. And then I got more, and it was like, boy, she really knows her Soderbergh. And it's kind of like, you guys have no idea. I got a scholarship for it. But yeah, so I just love, I think he's one of the most underrated filmmakers.
Truly.
I think when you look at his filmography, people don't really appreciate what he's doing. And then sometimes he's just doing these experiments because he wants to, but there's still the mistrust of like Unsane, medical
Yeah.
establishment, High Flying Bird, the NBA. And so what I love about Contagion, you're dealing with government, medical, like it's everything is
Yeah, it's
wrapped in
everything.
this. Yeah, and he's like a Pakula guy and also good friends with Fincher. And so I could just see this would tap right into the Blake psyche. So I knew I had to talk to you about this
Oh
one.
man, he's a dream. Like again, Jen, because we never know how these things go. He's
Mhm.
he's the one person that I didn't get to talk to about All the President's Men that I would love to.
Yeah.
Because I know maybe that he's watched it as much as me.
Yes.
There's one person, and it's him. Maybe Scott C. Burns too, because the report is very All the President's Men, and like Soderbergh
Mhm.
shot and produced and did all that. But yeah, I just think he's terrifically underrated, like all round filmmaker, and has such a just a. It's so funny how uh, the odd couple he and Fincher are. Like
Mhm.
Fincher is the psycho. He's like I sit sometimes in his editing suite with him and watch him with a laser pointer. No, no, no. Like, and he's just like, it gives me anxiety and I leave. He just goes back to his office. He's like, I can't handle this. But then his is like, he's such a generous kind of educator presence as a filmmaker to talk about like, if I can't think of a better reason to do a two shot, then it's not if I can't think of any, formal reason that's not going to enhance the story to not have it as a two shot where two characters are having a conversation, then I'm not going to do it. But like all the way up to Kimmy, man, Kimmy was another huge
Yeah.
pandemic movie, like connecting these two tendrils together. I which I loved, I think was a absolutely terrific,
Yes.
terrific
And her
movie.
friend Mitchell Beaupre wrote just
Oh,
beautifully
yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Mitch Beaupre, love them. They are amazing. Follow everything they do, and also they are both a past and upcoming guest. I think on both of our shows. Is
Oh,
that
always. Yeah.
yeah?
Yep.
Pretty consistently.
Mhm.
Um, Back to Soderbergh. Yeah, I just think that a lot of people that I come across have almost like eras of Soderbergh, whereas I find that I put myself firmly into the camp of I'm going to watch absolutely everything that he does. And if it does not resonate with me in that time, I know that I'm going to be able to come back to it and it's going to be
Mhm.
fantastic. It's also super annoying in Australia, particularly because of ecosystem of different streamers and stuff like that. Like HBO Max, does the HBO Max thing go to this streamer or that streamer, or is it on Apple or whatever? It would just be really nice to just like actually have a place that he was. I know that's kind of dumb because you don't want him to get stuck on a Netflix, but I like kind of like I want to know where Soderbergh stuff is all the time, and I just want to be able to get it. And hopefully, because we're both physical media heads, more and more of his stuff starts making its way to physicals and maybe to places like Imprint
Yeah,
or
like a
those
box
places,
set. Mhm.
box sets that bring things together to actually get the thematics, because he's so prolific that it's very
Mhm.
easy to miss like that consistent. I think that you nailed it, that consistent distrust of the establishment in some way, shape, or form, and just institutions. Like they're not always, and I think that that's what Contagion does beautifully. It's like these institutions are not always right. In fact,
Yeah.
Dr.
People are
Sussman
people. Mhm.
Dr. Sussman, who played by Elliot Gould, is like the guy who figures out the viral code to start
Yeah.
the vaccination process, even though he's meant to have destroyed his samples. So who knows
Yeah.
how? Like he's like, no, you should do it like this, no, and he disagrees. So yeah,
And Jennifer
I
L's character,
yeah, goes
being
wild,
rebellious. Yeah.
puts
Yeah.
her own vaccine in herself,
Yes.
goes and kisses her dad while he's like infected. I'm like,
Yes.
oh god. Um,
Amazing. Yeah.
but no, it's
Thinking outside the box. Yep.
thinking outside the box, thinking about variants, thinking about that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's scary. It is like someone needs to go to like Scott Burns's computer and just like go,
Who
how
told
did
you
you
all of this?
who
Yeah.
told, like, it feels like
Which books? Yeah.
you needed like a post-pandemic interrogation. How did you actually write this? Because it's so right, like in every conceivable way. But no, I love this movie and I love Soderbergh, and I'm always glad to talk about him, but particularly this. And when people were like, "Hey, they made a movie about a pandemic. We should all watch it at the beginning of the pandemic." All of the people who saw it were like, "Are you sure? Do you want to do this to yourself?"
Kind of scary. Yeah, the hell out of
It's
you. I'm glad I
yeah.
watched it this far after, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Enough time in hospitals. It's like, I don't
your
need medical
timing
shows. It's
your
fine.
your timing is impeccable as always. You really don't need this. You
No,
don't need
I
this in
was
your
glad that Warner Brothers put it out now, for sure.
yeah.
They chilled a
When you
little. Yeah.
when you saw on the Apple charts that it was like the number one at the beginning of
Mhm.
the pandemic, I was like, man,
Really? Yeah.
there are gonna be some. I mean, we didn't know what COVID was at
No.
the beginning
Yeah.
of it. It's like when we're thinking it's the monkey bat virus from Contagion, and we're all gonna just like have seizures and freeze like Gwyneth Paltrow and die with like a
I
death mask that like
know.
it rivals Ted Levine's death mask in Heat. As far as I'm concerned, it's one of the best in movies. And oh yeah, no, this
You know
movie was
what's
terrible.
burned into my brain? I mean, you were a 90s kid too. Do you remember like Outbreak, that
Oh
scene in
yeah,
the movie theater?
oh yeah, yep,
The
yep, yep.
first, when I had my first spine surgery scheduled, we had no idea it was going to be that day. Like it got
Oh,
scheduled. I went with my buddy Jim, or my brother Jim, and my buddy Paul, and we're like, yeah, let's go see. It's, Dustin Hoffman and Renee, and we went to Outbreak. And like then like a surgery scheduled, you're like, holy shit, why did I choose Outbreak? So to this
Jen,
day, anytime I'm in a movie theater, like, or somebody coughs way too much, especially around the pandemic,
oh
you're like, oh my God, yeah.
how many train rides? Like going
Yeah,
back
yeah.
when you going on the train, like now when I do my
Or the
commute,
bus, that scene in Contagion, Jesus.
yeah, where people, well, yeah, and I'd seen Contagion, so people would like cough, and I'm like, get up, and I just walk to the next carriage. I'm like, nah,
Like,
I'm
get
not
the
doing
fuck
this.
out. Yeah.
No, thank you very much. Great idea for an upcoming. I'm throwing it out there for a watch with Jen later in the year. What was the movie that you chose that was the worst decision possible in your life based on what was happening in your life? Like, I need that because
I
I
have
have
a
a story
worse
about that.
one.
Go tell. I'll tell you my one, and we'll see if
Yeah.
you can tell. This is
Oh,
the
your
thing.
first date? Are you going to tell that
Oh
story? Well,
no, I'm
that's a
not going to
good
tell that one.
story.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll tell that one. Maybe we'll
But
save that for the show.
for me, it was so I decided we're going to see Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. My mom loves, serious Jim Carrey. And so we decided to check the mail on the way to the theater. In the mail, that's the day my parents' divorce became final. And like, it was a good thing. It was my mom's decision ultimately. And they're both like, good people, so much happier now. But it's like, that was a really bad. And then we just went to see Eternal Sunshine, and it was like, you know, just like a train wreck. Yeah. I
Um,
felt so bad. I'm like, I am the worst daughter ever.
well, after one of, I would consider her like my aunt. My like this is 97,
Hmm.
past 97. Yeah, it would have been 97, 96, 97. Um, who I consider my aunt passed away
Mm.
after a really long battle with cancer, and the whole family was. I was with they're friends, but our families are so intertwined. I'd genuinely call her an aunt. She passed
Yeah.
away. The whole family was obviously
Mm. I'm sorry.
despondent, and we thought, oh, it's been a long time, thank
I
you, but
know, but
at the time,
yeah, yeah.
someone goes, you know what, there's a new movie by the guy who made Forrest Gump. It's called Contact. We
Oh
should just go
shit.
see a science fiction movie. It'll just be, it'll just be about aliens,
Oh God.
and it'll be really cool. We should all go see it. It definitely doesn't have the, you know,
Hmm.
the stench of death, and all over the movie, and about parental loss and all those
Yeah.
things. It'll be fine. And we go and see Contact, and there's like 20 people in the cinema thinking that this is just going to be like a piece of escapism. It
Yeah.
leveled, like we were all, the whole family was
Annihilated.
all
Yeah.
annihilate. Yeah, it was, and utter annihilation. It was like the beginning of Apocalypse Now, where just everyone was just like,
Saigon shit. Yeah.
it was just the worst thing, worst thing possible. But yeah, Jen did allude to it, so I'll just clarify it. My first date with my wife, with when we were dating. This is after we'd both come out of cataclysmic relationships, apart from each other. We're going on a movie date because I'm a movie person, and we saw Blue Valentine, which is a movie that is the worst movie to watch. It's about like the worst kind of divorce,
Oh,
people
God.
literally destroying each other. And I was like, I don't know how she ever went to a movie with me again. Bless her heart.
Yeah. Well, she did. She married you. It's fabulous. But
We
it
survived.
started with that. Yes. She's
Brutal.
like, you know what? We survived Blue Valentine. We can do fucking anything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'd survived. You know, it was much like we'd survived some pretty bad breakup stuff, and then you're like, oh God, thanks for rubbing our noses in it for 2 hours in the best possible way, Derek Cianfrance.
You know, it might have bonded you. You could have laughed like,
Yeah.
wow, this is going to be better than that.
We've laughed for many years afterwards that it was the worst possible choice of all time to go see that movie. It was
Oh my
brutal.
gosh. You know, we just probably inspired like 10 podcasts to do this now.
No, but what I'm saying is this is the Watch with Jen TM. The Watch
Okay.
with Jen, we've got a
Yeah.
big group of friends. Do an episode much like your
Oh
Great
my
Physical Media
God. Sean
episode.
Cosby has like
Sean
1,000 of these stories. Yeah.
Sean Cosby. Sean Cosby, the memoir, the memoirs of Sean Cosby in 10 to 15 years. What a legend.
I know. He's going to have to change everyone's name. It'll be great. Yeah. Oh boy. Oh, we love our Sean. Yeah.
Oh God. But yeah, so yeah, that's
Well,
Contagion.
thank you. That's Contagion. Everybody, watch Contagion now that we're on this side of the pandemic, and maybe chime in and let us know the worst movie you saw at the worst time, or the best movie at the
yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. Send Jen some ideas about that one. We
Yes.
might have to get some callers for it in an episode. But yeah, look, Warner Brothers. I just want to say this quickly because it's a physical media episode. Warner Brothers is sneakily they're not always stuffed with special features. However, the transfers and the sound and everything are phenomenal, and they are sneakily arriving. Jen and I are both big physical media people. You know, we're keeping our eye out on the people like Imprint, and keeping our eye outs on things like Arrow and Mad Men in Australia and Criterion and all those. Warner Brothers sneakily puts them out, and there's no fanfare. And so I think you just have to, like, they're one of those ones that you have to actively seek out or keep a bookmark or something, because, you know, earlier this year there was like The Fugitive that came out in 4K, and I know they did another Exorcist version that came out, even though there was a special edition that came out, and there's all these sort of sneaky titles that are popping up. So keep an eye out for them. But Contagion, definitely one of them. A must upgrade for me personally, because I love this movie.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks for doing this.
You're welcome. Anytime. This has been, oh my God. Sorry we
So
derailed
funny.
the conversation.
You know what, though? It's fabulous. People are going to love it. Up next, we have a good friend who's been on the show before, Rachel Wagner, who is a critic and a podcaster for Hallmarkies Pod and Rachel's Reviews. Rachel, how are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, we were talking off air. It's been a crazy week, but hopefully we can distract ourselves with a little Footloose this morning.
And I'm having a little bit of hay fever, so my voice is not normally so gravelly, but hey, it works, right?
Yeah, it's all we can do. You know, like this time of year, I usually get a sinus infection that lasts like, you know, a couple months or something. So I'm really hoping that doesn't happen. But yeah, we're hanging in. Footloose came out 40 years ago. Classic movie for people growing up in the 80s. Do you remember the first time you saw it?
It actually was fairly recent. I saw it, I think maybe I saw it in college, but I think I saw it, I don't know, first just since I started being a YouTuber, which is interesting because so it would have been like 2016, 2017 I saw it. But it's interesting because the whole thing is filmed like 10 minutes from my house.
That's amazing. Do you
Yeah.
remember hearing about it as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely heard about it, knew that it was filmed in Utah. You got the Lehigh roller mills and the Lehigh High School, and there's the church is still around. That is the church in the movie. Yeah, it's and of course, you know, the song's very iconic. That it wouldn't have been the kind of movie that I would have watched with my parents because they were pretty strict.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what I would call one of the 1980s, early 90s sleepover movies, and they usually involved some kind of illicit dance that was
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. This
there's
was
something
the
about the
era.
80s. They were terrified of people dancing.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. There's that joke of like, you're afraid of dancing. What is this? The tiny town in Footloose? I think that might have been on Gilmore Girls, and I don't know why it stuck with me. But yes. And then there was Dirty Dancing, Flash
Girls
Dance.
just want to have fun.
Yes. And so many.
Hairspray.
Risky Business. He has to wait for his parents to go home to dance across the floor.
Right.
I mean, everybody was dancing in the 80s, I guess.
Yeah. Parents just hated dance.
I know. And in this movie, you have John Lithgow, who nobody really chews scenery like John Lithgow when he's playing a villain. Like he really gets into it, and he's enjoying the fire and brimstone. I first saw this when I was little at a neighbor's house, like down the block. It wasn't a sleepover. It was just they had the video, and I guess in the 80s, parents were like, whatever, you know, if we have it, you can watch it. And so we watched it. And I remember I was like a weird kid because I think it was first grade or something. And I went home and I had like plot problems. I was telling my mom, like, would they really, like, what was with the train, and like talking about the whole movie. So I was an odd kid. But the other thing that stuck out is all the girls were in love with Kevin Bacon. And, you know, the boys on the block loved Laurie Singer. And they're so cool and they're so beautiful and rebellious. I was just wild about Chris Penn. I thought, you know, I want to hang out with Willard. He's a nice guy. He befriends people. He's cool.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was my my taste in dudes was definitely Chris Penn. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. And when they did the Broadway adaptation, that character was my favorite in the Broadway adaptation.
Oh, nice.
He has a really fun song, Mama Says. So yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite Broadway adaptation, but it has some fun stuff. It's pretty popular. But yeah, I think one thing that struck me, we just covered this on Hallmarkies podcast in January, because we have a series called City Girls Pod where we cover Sex in the City, and since this has SJP in it, we thought it would be fun to cover it. And the thing that I guess surprised me, or that I'd forgotten, is like dancing is the least of this guy's worries. Like these kids are crazy. Like that scene when she's straddling the cars is nuts.
And she really did that, which is just bananas. I mean, they did have a stunt person, but she said like some of the most dangerous stuff they waited for the last day of the shoot in case she died. She was just kind of gung-ho. Laurie Singer is a fascinating person because she's like the youngest person to graduate from Juilliard. She was a musical prodigy, and then just got into modeling and signed a contract, and then led to acting. But she was in a few things around this time, like The Man with One Red Shoe and Falcon and the Snowman, but not a ton. She's great in this, but yeah, this girl is insane.
Yeah, that scene is crazy.
Terrifying.
I can believe. Yeah, I mean, and not only she is crazy for her, but she's putting everybody else's lives at risk as well.
I know, like her boyfriend who's driving like straight at a trucker. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I think
I've forgotten about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like just like Flashdance. It looks like a music video a bit. And so you have a lot of like glossiness, like his big barn dance where he the never ever thing where he's doing all the gymnastics and, you know, like pommel horse moves and stuff. That's amazing. I love the Let's Hear It for the Boys sequence.
Yeah, that's fun.
Teaching Chris Penn how to
definitely
dance.
has some bops for sure.
Yeah, the soundtrack. Did you know the soundtrack before you saw the movie at all? Like, did
Yeah.
friends have it? Yeah.
Yeah. Especially for the title song.
Yeah.
Everybody knows, that song and
Yeah.
yeah. So
Kenny
very
Loggins.
catchy. Very
Yeah.
catchy.
Yeah. He was kind of
Almost
like the,
Paradise. Is it?
oh my God, I love Almost Paradise. That's a beautiful one. Yes, so many great songs. And yeah, Kenny Loggins, Footloose, he was kind of the dude in the early 80s. He also did, the song from Caddyshack, and he was all over these movies. Yeah. It's directed by Herbert Ross, who was a choreographer, became a filmmaker, did a lot of great movies. He choreographed like Funny Girl, and then when he got into directing, made one of my favorites, The Goodbye Girl. Works
Mm.
really well with ensembles like Steel Magnolias. So, are you a fan of any of his work at all?
Yeah, The Goodbye Girl, I just watched that as part of, I'm doing this AFI Passions series for my patrons, where I review the AFI Passions list. I had never seen it, and then I watched it as part of that and was really charmed by it.
Yeah, I think it's so funny. I just rewatched it again. It's one that I think I watched way too much growing up, so I needed a little bit of space, but oh my
I never
gosh.
heard of it. It was new to
Oh
me. So
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, Richard Dreyfuss won the Oscar. He is amazingly funny in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the AFI Passions list, it has a lot of like other kinds of passion aside from rom-com. And
Yeah.
there's not that many rom-coms on the list. And so it was nice to get something like The Goodbye Girl.
Yeah, a nice break from some of the heavier stuff, I'm
Yeah.
sure that are on the list. I can't remember what was all on the list. Yeah, but this does have Sarah Jessica Parker in it, an early performance. I kind of loved the evolution of Sarah. Like, she was kind
Mm-hmm.
of the friend in these movies or just the girl next door, and then she became the romantic comedy leading lady. Like, I love Honeymoon in Vegas. There's Miami Rhapsody.
Well, and we
Yeah.
just reviewed on Hallmarky's podcast, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which was around the similar time, but she got the
Yeah.
lead in that one. And it's also
Nice.
about illicit dance.
That's right. I haven't seen that in ages. That was Helen
Yeah.
Hunt too, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one thing that Sex and the City didn't really use Sarah Jessica Parker's dance and music skills that much. And you
Yeah.
think there was a point on that show where she actually dates a ballerina. And so they could have.
I went to Paris and I got slapped. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember that. Yes. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, she's good in this, and the whole supporting cast is good. I mean, John Lithgow is really good in it.
He is. Yeah, Diane Wiest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she's incredible. And it's interesting, like what it's trying to say about religion and free will and I mean, I think it's very difficult to be a parent because you want to protect your children from pain and so but when do you kind of allow them to where's that line? Like, I think that would be very tough, for any parents to kind of, especially when you'd been through trauma like he had been through. And so I think he makes, for this kind of character, he makes a pretty compelling character, because it could be just like the parents in Dead Poet Society who were just like, what is wrong with you? Yeah. How dare your child want to be in a play? It's like ridiculous, and whereas like there's some humanity to his character. He's not just like an evil man.
No, he's three-dimensional. Like, you're angry at him, but you understand what's going on for sure. Yeah, as the film progresses. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was just re-released by Paramount in 4K, Blu-ray disc, and a digital copy as well. It looked fabulous. It sounds great, of course.
And I'd say, I haven't watched it in a bit, but I think the remake was actually like decent, like not horrible.
I like Julianne Hough. She's an amazing dancer, and she was likable. She kind of has like Sarah Jessica Parker energy, but they cast her in the lead, which was nice. Yeah,
I can see that. So
yeah,
it's an interesting artifact from the 80s.
It really is one of those, like you said, sleepover movies for sure. Well, Rachel, I want to thank you so much for talking to me about Footloose.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. I also want to thank everyone for listening, especially my patrons who support the show and help fund my research, equipment, film rentals, RSS fees, and more for as little as $1 per month at the Film Intuition Patreon, which is the home base for the show. Other ways you can support the podcast are by sharing, reviewing, and subscribing to Watch with Jen wherever you get your podcasts, and also checking out the cool merch store hosted and created by our talented logo designer, Kate Gabrielle. You can find the merchandise store, including shirts, tote bags, stickers, and more by visiting filmintuition.com and clicking on the shop link. The show's theme music is solo acoustic guitar by Jason Shaw and is available in the free music archive. You can also reach me or interact with Watch with Jen anytime on Twitter, either at Film Intuition or our Watch with Jen account as well. Well, until next time, please take care and happy movie watching. This is Jen Johans at filmintuition.com and Film Intuition on social media and Letterboxd. And this is Watch with Jen.